In this video, I'll walk you through a process of how to think strategically about the different technology programs and instructional strategies that you bring into your classroom. I'll focus on the broader question of student engagement, then dig into some of the reasons why we might perceive that students are disengaged. We'll look at potential root causes, instructional strategies that we might put in place, and programs that match up to those instructional strategies. Just so you know, I'm not going to walk through all the different programs I'm going to refer to in this video, but I do have separate tutorials about them on my channel. My name is Sam Carey, and this is my YouTube channel for the new EdTech classroom. I'm going to move over to a program called Coggle. It's a mind mapping tool. You can essentially just add different arrows and drag them all around. And then you can just continue to add different elements here. So you can change the colors. You can add images by bringing images in. You can also add icons and things like that. So what I did here is start with my problem in the middle. And I'm actually going to zoom out here and just give you a bigger picture sense of kind of where we're going. What I'm doing from there is I'm going to break that problem down. Then we're going to make sure that we have identified some evidence. We want to identify some root causes, and this is where those surveys and the actual data would become more important. I broke it up into kind of three big bucket categories. And the first is a real tangible objective issue, and that's simply that students are not showing up in class. Now, another element of engagement is passive learning. Students they don't seem to be really engaged. They're there, but they're not maybe doing anything, or they're not showing us evidence that they're really engaged with the lessons. Related to that is this issue of students kind of openly seeming like they're not interested. So this is a little bit different than kind of being there but not really participating. This is seeming like they're bored, uninterested, perhaps coming to class, but not actually turning in any work. Let's start here with the first one, which is students not attending class. Evidence for this would be really simple, right? This is attendance record. So students aren't coming to class. That's pretty clear. The root causes of a student not attending class could be different, and depending on that root cause would merit a different solution. So one potential solution to students not showing up to class is simply that they're not interested, right? They don't want to come to your class. And in that case, you're going to actually go over here to the students expressing boredom, not being interested branch. Doing these live synchronous classes, particularly if you're fully remote, is challenging for a variety of reasons. That could be lack of access to a device, or multiple people in a household needing to use a device. It could be just demands going on in the household. There's all kinds of different reasons for that. We have some different types of solutions that we could come up with here. So one solution to this logistical problem could be creative scheduling. A possible tech solution for this would be, rather than demanding that all students come at one time for live classes, you could potentially have some students come for a shorter period of time for a live class check-in, push them over to some asynchronous work, and then you could schedule time using the appointment slot scheduler in Google Calendar. Another solution is that if a student can't make live class, then we still need to be responsible for providing them with effective instruction. And that would mean that we need to plan effective asynchronous instruction. The most important, in terms of just foundational, is that you're using a learning management system intentionally. If you are at a school where this logistical issue is a challenge across all classrooms, I would highly suggest that you come together and you norm and sync up on your LMS organizational practices. You also obviously want to be using some sort of video tutorial program. I like Loom for this purpose. Advanced version of making video tutorials would be to put those video tutorials in a program like Edpuzzle. And then you also want to think through how you're packaging and delivering lessons. So I would recommend if asynchronous instruction is a big component of your teaching, that you really dig into how to build a more dynamic independent study by doing something like a hyperdoc. If you're less experienced with this, Nearpod is essentially a program that basically just gives you pre-built self-contained hyperdoc. The more experienced version here is going to be to build your own hyperdoc. There are lots of tools and guides for how to do that. It's actually an intentionally sequenced lesson that is rigorous and engaging. We would want to be thinking about how we're using these interactive content tools to promote active asynchronous learning. Tools like Edpuzzle, which I already mentioned, for interactive video. Tools like Actively Learn, which has a huge archive of text that you can make interactive. You can also pull your own text in. They also have an interactive video creator. It's a wonderful program. And Insert Learning is a Google Chrome extension that allows you to turn any web page into an interactive learning experience. So with a combination of 3 tools like these, you can pretty much take any piece of content, make it interactive. Now, the last component here of effective asynchronous instruction is parent education. If we're going to ask students to do a lot of the learning kind of independently, parents are also going to need to support them. Virtual tech nights can be a good option for this. It would involve getting parents into the programs that you're using. Let's jump over here to another element of engagement, and that's passive learning. Students might be showing up to class, and this could be remote or in person, but they're not actively participating. This is one where it would actually be a good idea to have somebody else observe you if that's something that you're open to. It can sometimes be very hard to analyze our own practice. So the more student-oriented reasons are going to be, that students are shy, they don't like to share out loud in a class. Maybe students don't understand what you're teaching, and so they feel scared to share. The more teacher-oriented one are going to be more around teacher actions. So this would be teachers, for example, only asking for volunteer-based participation. Teachers are often only asking students to participate using limited modalities, and often this is verbal. Elicit 100% participation from students with some of these whole group interactivity tools. And this is also a place where I would suggest mixing it up. Without a tech tool, I'm not quite sure how you get 100% participation, maybe with mini whiteboards. But tech tools are really effective for being able to hear from every single student pretty much every single time you ask a question. So great tools: Pear Deck, Nearpod, Slido, Mentimeter, Formative, and ClassKick are a little bit more advanced tools. Personal favorite, Padlet, and also Google Jamboard. If your student's issue is actually around lack of understanding here, using these tools isn't necessarily going to tackle their lack of understanding. That's kind of out of the purview of this discussion today. But what it will allow you to do is better understand what students understand and what they don't know. The other compelling reason to use these tools is that it allows students to respond with multiple means of interacting, and they can do so in a relatively low risk environment. This is one thing I can say. I guarantee you, if you use these tools, these interactive tools, you will see a massive increase in student engagement. By the way, if you're finding the tips I'm sharing in this video helpful, then be sure to hit the like button, and you can also share this video with other teachers that you know to show your support. And if you're looking to just get started with how to use technology strategically, then check out my free How to Teach with Technology Starter Kit. You can get it at newedtechclassroom.com/starter kit. Okay, the last element here that I'm going to talk about, engagement, is this other big issue of student engagement, and that's that students at least are showing on the outside that they don't seem interested, and that might show up as they're not doing the work. They might, be kind of showing us signs that they're bored, that they don't want to be there. Evidence of this being your problem could be that students are actively telling you, they're saying to you, Why do I have to be here? Why is this important? I'm bored. Students may not be completing their work, heads down, right? Sleeping in class. Misbehaviors are also often a outward sign. One root cause is maybe more on your end in terms of the lessons that you're delivering. Maybe, and this is something where you really have to kind of be honest with yourself here, or have somebody else observe you and be open to their honesty. Maybe the lessons you're delivering aren't that interesting, and that's why students aren't interested. Could be the problem if you haven't mixed things up for a while. So I mentioned, if you're using Nearpod just over and over and over and over again, it might have been fun and interesting initially, but 20th time, not so much so. Another big one for students is they're feeling like they lack agency, feeling like school has been imposed upon them. Of course, that could be an issue, that they're displaying misbehaviors, or they're displaying behaviors that they're not interested because they're actually having difficulty with the content. Any students past the age of 11 more interested in peer-to-peer interactions, and they're really motivated by that. Now, let's say you're in this one, which I think actually everybody could use some mixing it up. And, it's good to actively and proactively think about how we can do this and bring in some new and interesting things. One is, if you haven't already, to start experimenting with some gamification. Quiz is like Kahoot. If you've used Kahoot, both of those are just more simple gamification tools. They also have more elaborate gamification tools. One is Minecraft EDU, and another is Prodigy if you're a math teacher. If you are interested in checking out good games to use, I would highly recommend checking out Common Sense's website. Another strategy is to mix up the way that students start exploring content. If you start bringing in your own video tutorials, you start, bringing in some Edpuzzle YouTube videos, crash course videos, things like that, that's, going to add an element of engagement. But if you've kind of already done those, you could also push yourself to think about some more advanced tech ways of engaging students with the content. Two programs that I love for this, Google Expeditions and Merge. Merge has all kinds of VR and augmented reality apps that are educational. They can visit, I taught ancient civilizations, so they can visit China on a virtual field trip. If you have the means, the ability to bring in something like virtual reality, augmented reality, that can also be a great way to mix it up. Start looking at ways that you can bring in creativity apps to have students show understanding. I would also start to look for some places where you can have students apply what they know with some authentic learning experiences that have them actually applying what they're learning with using a tech tool. This could be students making a podcast, could mean with a program like Soundtrap, could be students making digital books with Book Creator. Look at some units that you have coming up and just think about how you could have students show what they know by, doing something different. Rather than a presentation, could you have them make a video presentation in a program like Adobe Spark? These are also, just like with interactivity tools, pretty much a guaranteed hit in terms of boosting engagement and excitement. Students understand that they're doing something important and cool and relevant, and that they're building a life skill. We have another root cause, and that's that perhaps students feel a lack of agency. They're expressing like, I feel like I'm trapped. I feel like I have no ability to, choose what I want to do. What I do suggest is that you try using choice boards for controlled choice. For example, if they're learning about a particular topic, you can have them choose how they're going to learn that information. They could also choose how they're going to show what they know. And you could even turn it into like a bingo sheet where they have to do a certain number of them and they can't repeat old ones. Genius Hour is more of an open choice time. For example, Women's History Month, for example. And Genius Hour is an hour in the week where students basically have open freedom and they can do anything related in some capacity to Women's History Month. The next one, which I also recommend trying out, particularly if you're an English teacher, if you have students read books, a great way to kind of give students a little bit more of a perception that they have choice is to allow them to choose the next book. You can also have them give you some feedback about a tool that they want to learn about. Last one here that I'm going to talk about is students who are more interested in peer-to-peer interactions. They either socialize a lot in class or they are highly motivated by peer feedback and by impressing their peers. One thing to do is just to create more opportunities for social sharing, really starting to shift the culture away from students just producing work for you and students producing work for the whole class. If it gets posted, on a class website, if they have to put it up on Padlet and they're all commenting on each other's work, that can be a huge motivating factor for some students. Of course, you can also just create more opportunities for peer-to-peer support, structured collaborative groups. You could also use a program like ClassKick, which I mentioned as a whole group interactivity tool. ClassKick will allow you to pair students up, and students can also request help and get that help from other students. Skype EDU it's still available now, but it won't be in the future. Skype EDU is a program that allows you to connect with other classes around the world. And they were doing all this, pre-school closure where you could coordinate with another class through Google Meet or Skype. And they have all these structured activities that you can do with other classes around the world. Bring in guest speakers. So I've done things in the past like bring in the author of the book that we are reading. This is going to have the benefit, if you're an individual teacher, of kind of giving you a boost, scoring a win, even if you don't fully tackle the engagement issue. If you really focus on a targeted piece of engagement, you will see some success with it, and it's going to give you a boost. And those, I think, are much needed. If you are a school leader, this is a key component to investing teachers. I hope that you got some ideas for how to strategically come up with a plan and use some tech tools and tech-infused strategies to solve some issues that you're having.